Silence is unsettling, distance is a mirror. When you walk away, when you stop chasing, when you reclaim your power, something shifts. The very people who once took you for granted start to feel your absence like a shadow that never leaves. They remember the way you made them feel, the comfort of your presence, the certainty of your love. But here's the truth. It's not just about missing you. It's about realizing what they lost. Distance forces reflection. It makes them confront the void they once dismissed. It stirs emotions they ignored, and suddenly they come back, not because they've changed, but because they now recognize the value you always had. So the question isn't why they return, but why it took your absence for them to see your worth. And more importantly, do you still want to be where you were? Because sometimes the greatest power lies in not letting them back in. When someone walks away or fails to appreciate your presence, it's easy to question your worth. You replay conversations, analyze every moment, and wonder what you could have done differently. But the truth is, people rarely recognize value when it's right in front of them. It's not about what you lacked, it's about what they failed to see. And sometimes the only way for them to understand your significance is through your absence. There's an undeniable human tendency to take things for granted, especially when they're always available. When someone knows they can reach you anytime, when they believe you will always be there, they stop noticing the small things that make you special. Your kindness, your patience, your love, it all becomes background noise in their lives. Not because you aren't extraordinary, but because familiarity can make even the rarest things seem ordinary. But the moment you step away, everything shifts. The space you once filled is now empty, and suddenly they are left with nothing but silence where your presence used to be. It is in that silence that they begin to realize what they lost. They remember the warmth of your voice, the comfort of your support, the way you understood them when no one else did. And that realization is powerful, because people often don't appreciate the light until they are forced to sit in darkness. It is a cruel irony of life. Distance teaches appreciation in a way that closeness never can. When you remove yourself from someone's world, they are forced to see you in a new light. They begin to understand that what they assumed would always be there is no longer within reach. They start to miss the small things they once overlooked. The way you laughed at their jokes, the way you made them feel important, the way you stood by them even when they were difficult to love. And this is when the shift happens. Suddenly, they find themselves reaching for their phone, typing out a message, hesitating before pressing send. They wonder if they made a mistake, if they misjudged what you truly meant to them. They replay memories in their minds, trying to remember the last time they truly appreciated you. And for the first time, they feel the weight of your absence in a way that stings. But here's the most important part. You are not responsible for making them see your worth. You don't need to chase, to convince, to remind them of what they lost. Your value does not decrease just because someone was blind to it. The lesson was always theirs to learn, not yours to teach. Your absence is not just a reminder of what they lost. It is a declaration of what you refuse to accept. You refuse to be in a space where you are not cherished. You refuse to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's limited perception of you. You refuse to give your energy to those who only recognize its worth when it is gone. And this is where your power lies. Because the moment you stop proving your value, the moment you stop trying to be seen, you become unforgettable. When you walk away, you force them to confront the truth. They had something rare, something beautiful, and they let it slip through their fingers. People come back not because you reminded them, but because life reminded them. They meet others who don't understand them the way you did. They search for the same connection and realize it isn't easy to find. They experience moments that make them wish they had appreciated you more. And in that realization, they return, not out of convenience, but out of the undeniable truth that your presence added something to their life that they can't replace. But here's what you must understand. By the time they come back, you will have changed. The version of you they took for granted no longer exists. You are stronger, wiser, more self-assured. You have learned that your worth is not tied to someone else's ability to recognize it. So when they return, the question is no longer whether they see your value. The question is whether they deserve the person you've become, and that is a decision only you can make. Your absence is not just a moment of distance. It is a lesson in self-worth. Let them learn it. Let them feel it. Let them sit with the weight of your silence. Because the ones who truly matter will never need to lose you to see your value. And the ones who do, well, they were never meant to stay. There is something profoundly unsettling about losing access to what was once freely given. It forces people to confront a reality they never anticipated. That just because something felt secure doesn't mean it was permanent. When you pull away, when you create distance, you aren't just removing yourself from someone's life. You are introducing them to a version of reality where you no longer exist at their convenience. And that realization shakes people to their core, because for the first time, they have to face the truth. They assumed you would always be there. They believed your patience was endless, that your kindness was a given, that your loyalty was a silent contract with no expiration date. They never truly considered what life would look like without your presence. Until now. Human nature is fascinating in its contradictions. We chase what we cannot have, but we neglect what is within reach. The moment something is freely available, we fail to value it, but the moment it is gone, we become desperate to reclaim it. It is not always about love. Sometimes it is about control. It is about realizing that someone who once poured into them, who once made them feel important, has now chosen to withdraw. And this is where the discomfort begins. Because now they are forced to look inward. They start questioning, why did they leave? Did I do something wrong? Were they more important to me than I realized? These are the questions that haunt people when they lose access to someone who was once a constant. And as these questions grow louder, so does the urgency to seek answers. It is a kind of emotional withdrawal. When someone has been accustomed to your presence, your affection, your unwavering support, losing it feels like a loss of stability. They may not have recognized it while you were there, but now, in your absence, they feel the void. It disrupts their sense of control, their expectations, their comfort. And when people feel out of control, their instinct is to regain it. That's why they return. But here's the truth. When they come back, it is not always because they miss you. It is often because they miss how you made them feel. They miss the validation, the security, the comfort of knowing you were always there, even when they failed to appreciate you. And that is where you must be careful. Because not everyone who comes back is returning with a changed heart. Some are simply returning to reclaim what they lost, without ever intending to value it differently. This is why your distance is so powerful. It forces people to confront their own intentions. It separates those who truly care from those who simply fear losing access. It filters out the ones who only realized your worth when it became inconvenient for them. And most importantly, it shifts the power dynamic back into your hands. Because now the question is not whether they will return. The real question is, do you even want them back? Your absence forces them to face their own emotions. If they truly valued you, they will return with a deeper sense of appreciation. If they only valued what you gave them, they will return with the same expectations, hoping that you will fall back into old patterns. And that is where your growth must speak louder than their regret. Distance is not just about making someone miss you. It is about giving yourself the space to see things clearly. It is about stepping back and observing who truly makes an effort to reach you when you are no longer making yourself readily available. It is about understanding that not everyone who comes back deserves a second chance. Because when you walk away, when you stop chasing, when you remove yourself from situations where you are not valued, you create an opportunity for something greater: self-respect. And the moment you embrace that, you will find that the only people you need in your life are the ones who never needed your absence to see your worth. So when they return, take a moment. Look beyond their words, pay attention to their actions, and ask yourself, Are they coming back because they see you differently, or simply because they don't want to lose what you gave them? Because the difference between the two is everything. There's an undeniable shift that happens when you pull away. It's not just physical distance, it's an energetic withdrawal, a recalibration of what you allow and what you no longer entertain. And in that silence, something powerful takes place. The very people who once overlooked you, who took you for granted, who assumed you would always be available, suddenly start feeling your absence in ways they never expected. People often think they crave a person, but what they truly crave is the version of themselves that existed in that person's presence. They miss how they felt when you were around. The confidence, the reassurance, the comfort of knowing that someone out there truly saw them, truly cared. And when that presence disappears, when that familiar warmth fades, they are left in the cold, with nothing but their own reflection. That is when the realization sets in. Human nature is fascinating. We don't value consistency. We respond to scarcity. The more something is available to us, the less we acknowledge its worth. But take it away, and suddenly it becomes all we can think about. It is not until the calls stop coming, the messages go unanswered, the effortless support vanishes, that they realize they were never entitled to your presence in the first place. And that is when they start to feel the weight of their own actions. They begin to replay moments in their mind, conversations where they dismissed you, situations where they failed to reciprocate, instances where they assumed you would always be there, no matter how little they gave in return. Regret is a powerful thing, but it's even more potent when it's paired with the awareness that they pushed away someone who truly cared. But here's the irony. It wasn't until you chose yourself that they started choosing you. It wasn't until you stopped making them a priority that they realized they had lost something irreplaceable. Because in your absence, they are forced to sit with their own emptiness. They are forced to acknowledge that the way you loved, the way you nurtured, the way you poured into them, it wasn't something they could find just anywhere. So they come back. Not because they've necessarily changed, but because they've realized what they lost. They return with apologies, with nostalgia, with sudden bursts of affection, hoping that they can slip back into your life as easily as they once did. And this is where your strength is tested. Because the question is no longer whether they miss you. The real question is, do they deserve access to you again? Your distance was a lesson, a mirror reflecting back to them the consequences of their actions. But their return is not an automatic redemption. Nostalgia is not the same as growth. Missing you is not the same as valuing you. And this is where you must be discerning. Do they return with accountability? Do they acknowledge why you walked away in the first place? Do they come back with changed behavior, or just with words designed to pull you back into the same cycle? Growth means recognizing that not everyone who returns should be welcomed back. It means understanding that missing someone is not enough. Effort, consistency, and genuine change are what matter. You do not owe your past an open door simply because it knocks. You do not have to allow someone back into your life just because they now realize what they lost. This is where you reclaim your power. Because the moment you step back, the moment you choose yourself, the moment you prioritize your own peace, you stop operating from a place of fear. Fear of losing someone, fear of being alone, fear of never being chosen. Instead, you start operating from a place of abundance, knowing that the right people will never need to experience your absence to appreciate your presence. So when they come back, don't just listen to their words. Watch their actions. Don't just hear their apologies. Observe their effort. And most importantly, ask yourself, does this serve the person I have become? Because sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is realizing that your distance wasn't just a reaction, it was a redirection. And not everyone who returns is meant to stay. There's a reason they come back, and it has nothing to do with fate or coincidence. It's about energy. The energy you once gave them, the presence you once poured into them, the light they once absorbed without even realizing it. When you pull away, it's not just your presence that disappears. It's the way they felt in your presence. And that loss creates an undeniable void. People rarely recognize the gift of someone's energy while they have it. They become accustomed to it, take it for granted, assume it will always be there. They don't consciously think about how much they rely on your warmth, your reassurance, your ability to make them feel seen until it's gone, until they wake up one day and realize that the ease they once had with you has turned into silence, that the comfort they once felt has been replaced with emptiness. This is where the shift happens. Your absence forces them into self-reflection, but not always in the way you think. It's not just about missing you. It's about missing the version of themselves that existed in your presence, the version that felt secure, that felt desired, that felt important. And when that version disappears with you, they start searching for it again. At first, they try to fill the space with distractions, with temporary validations, with other people who might offer a fraction of what you once did. But it doesn't work. Because your presence was never just about attention. It was about connection. And connection isn't easily replaced. So they come back. Not because they suddenly value you the way they should have all along, but because they crave the feeling they had when you were around. They return because they want access to that energy again, because they miss the way you made them feel. And this is where you have to be careful, because when someone returns out of longing rather than growth, the cycle repeats. You see, longing is temporary. Longing fades when comfort is restored. If someone comes back into your life simply because they miss how they felt when you were around, they are seeking relief, not reconciliation. They are searching for comfort, not commitment. And once they regain that sense of security, once they feel reassured that you are still there, they may slip back into old habits, treating your presence as something guaranteed rather than something earned. This is why distance is such a powerful test, because it reveals who truly values you and who simply values what you provide. It forces people to confront the reality of who they are without you, and for many that reality is uncomfortable, it is unsettling, it is lonely, but discomfort is not the same as transformation, and regret is not the same as accountability. So when they come back, ask yourself, is this return rooted in growth or in nostalgia? Are they showing up as someone who has reflected, learned, and evolved? Or are they simply chasing the comfort of what once was? Your energy is not a revolving door. It is not something to be accessed at someone's convenience. And your presence should not be a place of refuge for those who only seek shelter when their own choices leave them empty. The hardest lesson you will ever learn is that missing you is not the same as valuing you. Some people will miss you deeply, but still lack the capacity to love you properly. Some people will return with words that sound like change, but actions that prove otherwise. And some people will only realize your worth in the moments when they can no longer reach you. But that realization belongs to them. It is not your responsibility to heal it. Your greatest power lies in your ability to choose whether their return aligns with your growth, to choose whether their presence still serves your journey, to choose whether you are willing to reopen a door that once led to disappointment, because not every comeback deserves a welcome. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is continue walking forward, knowing that the past only holds value when it leads to something greater. They come back because they finally see you in a way they never did before. But the real question is, do you still see them the same way? Time and distance have a way of sharpening reality. When you first step away, emotions cloud your vision. Nostalgia distorts the truth, making the past seem softer, more forgiving than it really was. But as the silence stretches on, clarity emerges. You begin to see things for what they truly were, not just through the lens of love, but through the lens of truth. You see how much you gave, how often you compromised, how deeply you tolerated things you never should have. And in that reflection, you grow, you learn, you evolve. But while you were evolving, they were searching for that familiar warmth, that steady presence, that version of you they never thought would walk away. And when they finally realize that no one else has been able to match the space you once held in their life, they come back. Not because they are different, but because they believe you might still be the same. That is the moment of power. Not when they left, not when they ignored your worth, not when they took you for granted. No, the true moment of power is when they return and you are no longer standing in the same place they left you. Because here's the truth. People don't always come back because they've changed. They often come back because they assume you haven't. They assume that the love you once gave so freely will still be there, waiting, untouched by the pain they caused. They assume that your heart will still hold space for them in the same way it once did, as if love is a flame that can burn indefinitely without fuel. But love, real love, demands presence, it demands effort, it demands reciprocity. And when someone comes back expecting to pick up where they left off, they are not coming back out of love. They are coming back out of comfort, out of convenience, out of the belief that the door they walked away from will still be open simply because they decided to return. That is where you must stand in your growth. You must ask yourself, is their return aligned with the version of you that now exists? Does their presence contribute to your peace, your evolution, your forward motion? Or are they simply here to reclaim the space they once abandoned without truly earning it? You see, the reason they come back is not the reason you should let them in. Just because someone realizes your value later does not mean they deserve access now. Just because they miss you does not mean they are ready for you. And just because they finally see your worth does not mean they are capable of treating you with the love, care, and respect you always deserved. So when they return, do not rush to meet them where they stand. Observe. Listen. Pay attention. Do their actions reflect true transformation, or are they just reacting to their own loneliness? Are they showing up with changed behavior, or are they simply offering empty promises wrapped in regret? Are they here to build something stronger, or are they just seeking the security of what once was? This is where your growth is tested. Because the old version of you, the one who craved their validation, who longed for their love, who wanted so desperately for them to choose you, might be tempted to welcome them back with open arms, but the evolved version of you, the one who has spent time healing, learning, and rediscovering your own worth, knows that not every return deserves a second chance. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let them feel the full weight of their choices. To show them, not through words, but through actions, that love does not wait forever, that you are not an option to be revisited at their convenience, that you are not the same person they left behind. And if they have truly changed, if they return with humility, accountability, and genuine effort, then let them prove it. Let their actions, not just their words, tell you whether they are worthy of a place in your life now. Because the love you give should be a privilege, not a consolation prize. They come back because they see your worth, but the real power lies in knowing whether they are worthy of you now. And sometimes the most profound act of love is realizing that you've outgrown the very thing you once wanted.